Okay, so today we're diving deep into some serious strategizing, actually. Geopolitical strategizing, I should say.
Uh-huh.
We've got this really interesting interview that President Zelensky did with The Guardian, talking about Ukraine and
Right.
what they're facing security-wise.
Yeah.
And he's got some pretty strong ideas about NATO's role in all of this. Even if, and this is the big even if Ukraine doesn't actually become a full-fledged member.
Yeah. And, Zelensky's not just like, talking out of the blue here. He's looking at hard numbers. I
Yeah.
mean, he's looking at Russia
Right.
aiming for this massive military. Like, think 1.5 million troops by 2025.
Whoa, that's a big number.
It's a huge number.
That's got to be like, what, almost double what they have now?
It's a significant increase for sure.
And, Zelensky brings up Ukraine's current troop count, which is around 1 million, right?
Right. So you're talking about a potential gap of 500,000 soldiers.
Yeah.
Just in terms of sheer numbers, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, numbers matter, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, what Zelensky is saying is, look, European countries, they can help.
Right.
But they can't single-handedly close that kind of gap.
Yeah, it's not just about manpower, right?
Yeah.
It's about resources, political will.
Exactly. The commitment it would take. I mean, and Zelensky seems pretty convinced that when it comes down to it, it's really the U.S. and NATO with their collective defense structure.
Like that big umbrella.
Yeah, that's who can really provide the guarantees that Ukraine is looking for.
So his solution, and this is the one that really made me sit up and take notice, is to station NATO troops right there in Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
as a deterrent, even if Ukraine isn't a member.
Yeah, that's definitely a bold move.
Bold is putting it mildly, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many questions about how that would even work logistically.
Right. How many troops? Where do you put them? And then, of course, there's the big one. How does Russia respond to that?
Exactly. I mean, is that going to make things calmer, or are we talking potential escalation?
Yeah. It's a tricky situation. You've got to weigh those potential consequences very carefully.
And, he didn't stop there. Zelensky also brought up defense spending. He wants all NATO members, Ukraine included, to commit to spending at least 5% of their GDP on defense.
No, that's a big ask. I mean, for a lot of NATO countries, that's a pretty significant jump from what they're spending now.
Yeah, to put it in context, the U.S. is at, what, like 3.5% right now?
Right around there, yeah. And a lot of European countries are even below the 2% target that NATO sets. So you're talking about a major shift in priorities.
Which brings us to, well, you remember Macron, right? The French president. He's been pushing for a stronger European defense force.
Right, that whole idea of strategic autonomy for Europe.
And I'm thinking back to his proposal to send, what was it, like 100,000 to 150,000 European troops to Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of echoes Zelensky's point in a way. Can Europe actually pull that off, though? You're talking about a massive logistical and political undertaking.
Right. Europe's not exactly known for being super unified when it comes to, well, anything.
It's putting it mildly. I mean, getting everyone on the same page for something like that, it's a tall order.
And then Zelensky goes beyond the troop numbers, and he starts talking about resources.
Like the rare earth minerals.
Right. Those are huge right now.
I mean, they're essential for pretty much all our tech, smartphones, electric vehicles, even defense systems.
So having control of those gives Ukraine some serious leverage.
Oh, definitely. Economically, strategically, it's a big deal.
And of course, there's the oil and gas in the Black Sea.
Which, again, it's not just about energy for Ukraine. It affects the whole European market.
So you've got these resources that are already valuable, but they become even more so because of the conflict, right?
Absolutely. They become targets. They raise the stakes. It means international support, whether it's troops on the ground or economic partnerships.
It all becomes even more important.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Zelensky lays out his concerns, right?
Yeah, he does. And he offers solutions.
And he definitely gives us a lot to chew on.
He does. And I think it raises these bigger questions about what the international community's role should be in all this.
Right. Like, what's our responsibility when a country's security is on the line, especially when you've got military power dictating so much of the game?
Exactly. I mean, how do we balance different approaches? Military deployments, economic support. What are the risks and rewards of each?
Here's a question for you, and I'm really curious to hear your take on this. Zelensky's really focused on the military side of things, right?
Right.
But what if, and this is a big what if we flip the script? What if the international community went all in on supporting Ukraine economically?
Interesting.
Help them build up their own resources, control those resources, and use that as a foundation for long-term security.
So it's less about direct military intervention
Exactly.
and more about empowering Ukraine economically.
Right, because if they're strong economically, maybe they're less vulnerable in other ways.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, is it idealistic? Maybe. But in this current climate where everything feels so tense, so volatile,
Yeah,
maybe a different approach is worth exploring. It's a complicated situation, that's for sure.
absolutely.
Lots to think about.
Lots to think about.